mentioned, I'm focused on the guys that are within our group and on our team. I think that's what's appropriate for me. I have no reaction to former Steelers and things of that nature. I don't listen to the elevator music, so I don't have a lot of detailed understanding of that criticism.
There's Steelers coach Mike Tomlin defending his quarterback Ben Roethlisberger and his leadership abilities earlier this week. So, Stephen A., do you think Coach Tomlin here is giving Ben Roethlisberger a pass, letting him off the hook?
Yes. I understand why. The man threw for 5,000 yards. He threw 34 touchdowns in the season. Even though they didn't make the playoffs for the first time in 5 years, they were still 9-6-1. It wasn't like they were 4-12 or something like that. And I think that it's also an indictment against what they feel in terms of Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, some of the things that they have said, and they didn't appear to be the ideal teammates. So I understand that's his quarterback. But here's the reason why I would say you have to hold Ben Roethlisberger more accountable. Even though you don't hear players coming out of the woodwork speaking out against him, it's clear that he had done some things wrong. Whether his weekly appearances on his radio show, some of the quotes that he gave to alienate teammates that he could use and utilize during the game in the season. And not only that, when you're the leader, sometimes it's incumbent upon you to play the role of motivator. And the fact of the matter is that sometimes that has not been the case with Big Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah, in most instances, you can look at an individual, point to their level of production, and leave it at that. But when you need others in order to get the job done, and you're the leader, then you do play a role in trying to galvanize the troops and get max effort and max level of production from the parts around you in order to achieve the desired level of success. That is not what happened with Pittsburgh last year. We're looking at Pittsburgh as a roster, even with the absence of Le'Veon Bell. And there is no question they should have been in the playoffs. There is no question that they underachieved. There is no question that dysfunctionality was sifting through that franchise. Obviously, you're going to look at the head coach, and Mike Tomlin is the first to tell you the buck obviously stops with him. Well, it does start somewhere, and that ain't always with the coach. Sometimes it's with the leader, that umbilical cord to the coach that's out there performing for you. And when you're the quarterback, clearly living by different rules, clearly held in an elevated position, and you know it, you can't be completely absolved from the problems that exist within the franchise. Ben Roethlisberger is not totally to blame. He's not the only one to blame. It's not all his fault. But it seems like Coach and Kevin Colbert have gone about the business of putting forth a strenuous effort, dare I say, to sort of quell any noise about Ben Roethlisberger being a problem. He could actually be both, Max, that you would say. He could be great for the team, a quarterback you're honored to have throwing the football for you, but also could have been a contributor to some of the problems that existed. And I'm saying you can't ignore that.
Mike Tomlin's not giving Ben Roethlisberger a pass. Mike Tomlin is being the head coach the way he knows how to be a head coach. He's closing ranks. He will not discuss players on other teams. It's not his business. Why should he be concerned with them? Unless they're about to play them, and he's got to prepare for them. If they have to play against Antonio Brown, he'll prepare for Antonio Brown. Meantime, he's focused on his team, and he's rolling with his quarterback. That's what happens in these times. You close ranks and believe in the guys you have there and believe that you can put them in the best position to get the most out of their ability, that the team functions optimally, and you can win the whole thing. Or at least that's getting ahead, I'm sure, for Tomlin. Win the next game. So, of course, Tomlin says he believes in a quarterback with whom, by the way, he has won a Super Bowl, right? Of course he believes in that guy. He's seen it before. And furthermore, that's his quarterback.
Yeah, so the argument isn't whether or not Ben Roethlisberger has been perfect. I don't think anybody at this table would contend that Ben Roethlisberger has been the ideal leader. But the question is, what do you want Tomlin to do? You want him to publicly come out against his Super Bowl winning quarterback and acknowledge the criticisms of players who are now on other teams?
Well, I think you and Max both have this wrong. I'm not saying I don't give a damn what Tomlin does. What I'm saying is, based on what he said, I'm reacting to what he said. I'm not saying that he should or shouldn't have said anything. But based on what you said,
does it give Roethlisberger a pass?
I'm saying that statement.
Well, what if he says that publicly and he takes Ben Roethlisberger
well, that's
behind
fine.
the scenes? What can we learn from the way things went down?
If that's the case, then we don't need to discuss anything, because the reality of the situation is that unless we're a fly on the wall, we never know definitively what's being done.
Stephen A., I will deal with your point directly.
That's what it is.
I understand what you mean. You're saying, whatever the circumstances are, whatever we expect, these statements give Roethlisberger a pass. Okay, I get it. This is what I'm saying about that. We don't know that yet, because Roethlisberger gave, obviously not just Antonio Brown, but also Le'Veon Bell, from their own statements, the feeling that there was a tier. Roethlisberger up here, everyone else down here. Now, does that work, yes or no? Is that in the best interest of the team, yes or no? If the Steelers go on to have great success this year without those two guys, then I don't think Tomlin gave Roethlisberger a pass here.
Okay, that's fair.
If they don't,
all right,
then maybe.
But that's fair. If Ben Roethlisberger is the same guy, but they succeed.
Right.
But if he changes, if he modifies his behavior, and I'm not sure how much we'll know about that, we leave that to our reporters that literally cover them as a beat. But the point is, if Ben Roethlisberger listened to the noise and heard the skepticism or the criticism that came in his direction, and all of a sudden we're talking on this show, on your show, on Countdown and beyond about how there's been a change that has taken place with Big Ben Roethlisberger, then excuse me, there will be tweeted to that argument that they were making against him.
I want to address that too. Even if that's the case, I find it hard to believe that a guy this deep in his career suddenly wakes up and he's a new guy. Maybe on the margins he can change a bit.
Depends on what
but
kind of
if that's the case, to me, that actually speaks more to Brown and maybe even Le'Veon Bell, because it means that his new teammates are buying into whatever they're running in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And as a result are not a problem. I find that's much more likely than suddenly Roethlisberger wakes up and goes, oh boy, I better change my stripes now.
So doesn't that tell you then it's not, success isn't going to be the judgment of this as you laid out? What if the Steelers miss the playoffs again, go 9-7, but at the end of the year, Roethlisberger, having not changed, still has the love of guys like Juju Smith-Schuster or Marquise Pouncey?
Then I would say this.
Is it not then that he still hasn't received a pass?
No, I think it's different then, because then, in fact, Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell would have made the case. What they're saying is, hold on, everybody, we're special talents. I know the quarterback's supposed to be in this elevated position, but in fact, on this team, we were just as important, and we shouldn't have been treated like second-class citizens just because the quarterback's elevated. And they will have proven the point if the team falls apart.
Well, let me put it to you this way. You put it that way, and that's fair. But let me put it to you this way. Is Antonio Brown arguably the best receiver in football?
Yes.
Is Le'Veon Bell arguably the best running back in football?
When last seen,
He's up there.
Okay? Has anyone said Ben Roethlisberger is the number one quarterback in football?
No.
So when you look at it from that perspective, you're talking about two elite dudes, the creme de la creme at their positions in the National Football League,
that's the argument, though.
saying, excuse me, we were treated like second-class citizens compared to this guy.
This is a guy who is going to go to the Hall of Fame, who has won Super Bowls, who is the leader of the team.
Based on the cumulative effects of his career,
Stephen A., that's
the last
not
couple
the
of years.
point. That's not the point. Is our quarterbacks, should they be treated as like in this kind of like sanctified position, right? That even if they're not as good for their position as a wideout or a running back, nevertheless, it's important for the team to recognize that they're the most important. That's the crux of the argument. Of course, he's not the quarterback that those guys are, running backs and wideouts, but that may not matter.
All right, let's leave it here because you got more, Max, and you got something on DeMarcus Cousins. Max isn't a fan of Boogie on the Warriors. He's going to explain why after the break. We have a great show planned for you Friday. Who will punch their ticket to the Elite Eight? Should Zion and Duke be on upset alert against the Hokies? And how big a deal is it if the Warriors don't get that top seed in the West? First Take, 10 a.m. on ESPN.
You know when to speak up, when to listen up, and when to dress up. Good on you. Now at Men's Warehouse, take 60% off select suits, plus select dress shirts are 3 for $99. You're gonna like the way you look.